Who was Leif Eirikson? We've all heard his name, but who was he? Leif Eirikson was born in 970 AD in the Dalasisla region of Iceland. Towards the end of the Viking Age, from 793 to 1066 AD. He also known as Leif the Lucky. Leif was a Norse explorer who is thought to have been the first European to set foot on continental America, approximately half a millennium before Christopher Columbus. See, Columbus discovered America in 1492. So, yes, well before Columbus. Leif has been described in the Vinland sagas as a wise, considerate, and strong man of striking appearance. Leif's family. Leif's father was Erik Thorvaldsson, also known as Erik the Red. Erik the Red was a Norse explorer too, described in medieval and Icelandic saga sources as having founded the first European settlement in Greenland. Erik most likely earned the epithet the Red due to the color of his hair and beard. His mother's name was Theodhild. He had 2 brothers and a half-sister. Here they are. Let's start with Thorvald Eirikson. The only medieval period source material available regarding Thorvald Eirikson are the 2 Vinland sagas, the Greenland Saga and the Saga of Erik the Red. Although differing in various detail, according to both sagas, Thorvald was part of an expedition for the exploration of Vinland and became the first European to die in North America. Thorstein Eirikson. He was the 3rd and youngest son of Erik the Red. Freydis Eiriksdottir. The medieval and primary sources that mention Freydis are the 2 Vinland sagas, the Saga of the Greenlanders and the Saga of Erik the Red. The 2 sagas offer differing accounts, though Freydis is portrayed in both as a strong woman. Youth and life of Leif. When his father Erik the Red was young, his father was banished from Norway for manslaughter, and the family went into exile in Iceland, which, during the century preceding Leif's birth, had been colonized by Norsemen, mainly from Norway. Erik was later banished from Iceland and sailed west to a place he named Greenland. He then briefly returned to Iceland to bring his family and other colonists back with him to Greenland, establishing its first permanent settlement in 986. Leif was 16 at the time. Leif grew up on the family estate Brattahild in the eastern settlement of Greenland. Tyrker, one of Erik's thralls, had been specially trusted to keep charge of Erik's children, as Leif later referred to him as his foster father. When he was of a proper age, Leif went to Norway, likely to serve as a retainer to its king, Olaf Tryggvason. It was on this journey to Norway that the Saga of Erik the Red states that Leif's ship was driven to the Hebrides, where he and his crew were forced to remain for much of the summer, awaiting favorable winds. During his stay there, Leif has fallen in love with Thorgunna, a noblewoman from the Hebrides who gave birth to their son Thorgils. Thorgunna remained in the Hebrides when Leif left, as he refused to take her along without permission from her family. Thorgils was later sent to Leif in Greenland, but he did not become popular. The Discovery of Vinland. There are 2 known versions of the Discovery of Vinland. According to the Saga of Erik the Red, Leif discovered Vinland after being blown off course on his way from Norway to Greenland. Before this voyage, Leif had spent time at the court of Norwegian king Olaf Tryggvason, where he had converted to Christianity. When Leif encountered the storm that forced him off course, he had been on his way to introduce Christianity to the Greenlanders. After they had arrived at an unknown shore, the crew disembarked and explored the area. They found wild grapes, self-sown wheat, and maple trees. Afterwards, they loaded their ship with samples of these newly found goods and sailed east to Greenland, rescuing a group of shipwrecked sailors along the way. For this act, and for converting Norse Greenland to Christianity, Leif earned the nickname Leif the Lucky. Leif did not return to Vinland, but others from Greenland and Iceland did, including Thorfinn Karlsefni, character featured in the manga Vinland Saga by Makoto Yukimura. Here's the second version, according to the Saga of the Greenlanders. Leif was not the first European to discover Vinland. Instead, Bjarni Herjolfsson and his crew, on a voyage from Iceland to Greenland, were overtaken by wind and fog, missed the southern tip of Greenland, and encountered an unknown coast. Believing it to be somewhere other than Greenland, they did not disembark, but rather continued to sail and found 2 additional coasts that did not correspond with their understanding of Greenland. After sailing back east, they eventually made it to their original destination, and then told of their discoveries. Roughly 15 years later, Leif approached Bjarni, purchased his ship, gathered a crew of 35 men, and mounted an expedition towards the land Bjarni had described. His father Erik was set to join him, but dropped out after he fell from his horse on his way to the ship, an incident he interpreted as a bad omen. Leif followed Bjarni's route in reverse and landed first in a rocky and desolate place he named Helluland, means flat rock land, possibly Baffin Island or northern parts of Labrador. After venturing further by sea, he landed the second time in a forested place he named Markland, means forest land, possibly near Cape Porcupine, Labrador. After 2 more days at sea, he landed on an island to the north, possibly Belle Isle, and then returned to the mainland, going past a cape on the north side, perhaps Cape Bald. They sailed to the west of this and landed in a Verdun area with a mild climate and plentiful supplies of salmon. As winter approached, he decided to encamp there and sent out parties to explore the country. During one of these explorations, Tyrker discovered that the land was full of vines and grapes. Leif therefore named the land Vinland, means wineland. There, he and his crew built a small settlement, which was called Leif's Budir, means Leif's Booths by later visitors from Greenland. After having wintered over in Vinland, Leif returned to Greenland in the spring with a cargo of grapes and timber. On the return voyage, he rescued an Icelandic castaway and his crew, earning him the nickname Leif the Lucky. Leif never returned to Vinland, but others from Greenland and Iceland did. The end of a story, Leif and his family. Concerning Leif. The winter following Leif's return from Vinland, his father died, shortly after 1000 AD, making Leif paramount chief in Greenland. At that time, Leif was 30 years old. He is last mentioned alive in 1018 in the Saga of Saint Olaf. According to the Saga of the Sworn Brothers, by 1025 the chieftaincy of Eiriksfjordur had passed to his son Thorkel. Nothing is mentioned about his death in the sagas. He probably died in Greenland sometime between these dates. Nothing further is known about his family beyond the succession of Thorkel as chieftain. Leif died between 1018 and 1025, at 48 or 55 years old. Concerning Thorvald, Leif's brother. In 9004, Thorvald set sail with a crew of 30 men for Vinland. He spent the winter in the camp set up by Leif. In the spring, Thorvald attacked 9 natives, called Skraelings by the Norse, who were sleeping under the shelter of canoes. One of them escapes and returns with reinforcements. Thorvald is killed by an arrow that manages to get through the barricade. He was buried in Vinland. His crew returned to Greenland. Concerning Thorstein, Leif's younger brother. Thorstein subsequently set sail for Vinland to retrieve his brother's body, along with his wife Gudrid. The ship was beset by bad weather and never reached Vinland. By the first week of winter, they had returned to Greenland and landed at Lysufjord in the western settlement, where they sought shelter with the families living there. That winter, an epidemic swept the settlement, killing Thorstein and several others. Concerning Freydis, Leif's half-sister, the Saga of Erik the Red portrays Freydis as a notable and strong woman, the half-sister to Leif Eirikson. She joined an expedition to Vinland led by Thorfinn Karlsefni, but is only mentioned once in the saga when the expedition was attacked by natives, called Skraelings by the Norse. The natives, equipped with war slings or catapults, stealthily attacked the expedition's camp at night and shot at the warriors. Many of the Norsemen panicked, having never seen such weaponry. As men fled during the confusion, Freydis, who was 8 months pregnant, admonished them, saying,
"Why do you run so far from these worthless creatures, you who are robust men? Yet it seems to me that you can slaughter them as you know how to do with cattle. Give me a weapon. I think I can fight much better than any of you."
Ignored, Freydis picked up the sword of the fallen Thorbrand Snorrason and engaged the attacking natives. Surrounded by enemies, Freydis tore off her garment, revealing her naked breasts, which she struck with her sword while screaming. The natives, frightened by the sight of a bare-breasted pregnant warrior uttering a war cry, immediately fled, which put an end to the battle. When she returned to camp, Thorfinn and the other survivors praised her zeal. Freydis not only earned a reputation as a formidable woman, but also as the first of the group to give birth on North American soil. Her son was called Snorri. After these events, Freydis decided to lead her own expedition, which she commanded unofficially. 2 ships took part, but one of them sank on the way, without any loss of life. This was not good news for Freydis, who had to feed twice as many people with the rations from a single ship. The problem was solved when she ordered her men to kill all the survivors of the second ship, and they carried out her orders with one detail. They refused to kill the 5 unarmed women. However, Freydis was not as merciful as her men, and killed the 5 survivors herself with an axe. Finally, the expedition led them to Lance aux Meadows, where they were chased by the natives. Freydis's determination did not waver in the face of this failure, so much so that she decided to set off on another expedition in partnership with her husband and 2 Icelandic brothers named Finnbody and Helgi. Freydis was finally officially in charge. The agreement stipulated that each man could bring 30 men with him and that the spoils would be shared equally. However, Freydis began to take a knife to it by hiding 5 more men on board. Because Freydis had been given the bigger boat, relations became strained and conflict eventually erupted. Sources remain vague as to whether Freydis simply gave the order to kill the 2 brothers and their crews, or whether, following a visit from them, she claimed to have been raped, which naturally prompted her crew to seek revenge. In either case, Freydis repeated the act with his axe when his men refused to kill the women. In the end, the expedition was inconclusive. Freydis returned to Greenland with her husband, and to hide her massacres she began by lying, claiming that the rest of the crew had loved the land they had discovered together so much that they had decided to stay and live there. Then she threatened to kill anyone who revealed the truth. Eventually the truth came out and Freydis was tortured until she confessed. Her brother Leif, ever more forgiving, could not ignore the blood ties that bound them, so he gave up the death sentence and sentenced her and her family to exile. The exact cause of her death is unknown, but sources agree that she died late and naturally. Thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe, leave a like and a comment if you appreciated the video. If you're interested, you have links to my social media in the description. Thank you for the support. See you soon.